Welcome back. I'm David Wilson, leadership coach and founder of Dominion Street Coaching. There are countless new books, new articles and podcasts on leadership which are published every year, all promising new frameworks, new models and new ways of thinking. And yet the longer I spend coaching senior leaders, the more I find myself returning to much older sources of wisdom. That's not because leadership has stood still, far from it. The technological, political and commercial pressures facing leaders today are immense and they're changing rapidly. But beneath all of that, leadership remains profoundly human. Organizations still rise and fall on judgment and trust, on courage and communication, and of course on character. And that's why I think there's still much we can learn from people like Cicero. Cicero wasn't a business leader in the modern sense. He was a Roman statesman, a lawyer, a philosopher, and an orator living over 2,000 years ago, during the final years of the Roman Republic. And that was a period marked by political instability, polarization, and intense competition for power, not entirely unfamiliar to many modern leaders. And what makes Cicero interesting to me is not that he was perfect in what he did. He certainly wasn't. At times, he might have shown remarkable courage, but at others, he could appear politically naive or overly concerned with his own reputation. But I think that's precisely why he's useful as a leadership study. He was a deeply human leader trying to navigate complexity, to navigate uncertainty and pressure. And one of his central insights was that leadership ultimately depends upon trust. Now, today, many leaders underestimate how quickly trust can erode. We've seen it in recent political developments. It erodes within teams, it erodes within organizations, sometimes even erodes within the leaders themselves. And I often see this playing out in coaching conversations. A leader may technically be making the right decisions, but if people sense an inconsistency, avoidance, or a lack of candor, then confidence begins to weaken. And once trust starts to diminish, then organizations slow down. Communication becomes guarded. Politics increases and energy just ebbs away. Cicero understood the importance of credibility and integrity in public life. He believed that words mattered, that persuasion mattered, and that leaders had a duty to speak truthfully and responsibly, especially during periods of uncertainty. Now that feels highly relevant today. One of the recurring challenges for senior leaders is the temptation to delay difficult conversations, whether they're about strategy, performance, or culture or risk. Often this comes from understandable motives. You don't want to appear to be damaging morale, to be creating conflict, or even just appearing negative. But in my experience, delayed truth usually creates larger problems later on. Good leaders I've worked with are able to combine humanity with honesty. They don't create unnecessary fear, but neither do they hide from reality. In fact, one of the most reassuring things a leader can do during difficult periods is to demonstrate calm and candid clarity. And that leads to another lesson from Cicero, which is communication itself. We sometimes speak about communication as though it were a soft skill, and I don't think it is. It's one of the central leadership disciplines. Cicero understood that leadership is exercised not only through decisions, but through explanation. People need to understand where they're going, why difficult choices are being made, and what principles are guiding those decisions. And importantly, communication is not simply about eloquence. Some of the most damaging organizational communications I've seen are highly polished, but fundamentally inauthentic. Senior people detect when messaging has become overly managed or disconnected from reality. What creates trust is alignment between words, actions, and values. And Cicero reminds us that leaders require moral courage, not grand theatrical courage, but the quieter courage required to say the difficult things early, to challenge emerging problems before they become crises, to resist the pressure to tell people only what they want to hear. And that's often where leadership becomes somewhat lonely. Executives operate under enormous pressure to project certainty and confidence, but mature leadership is not about pretending to have all the answers. It's about maintaining clarity of judgment under pressure while remaining anchored to the values and principles which govern you. And that's why I think these older sources still matter, because while technology changes, human nature changes much more slowly. Organizations are still made up of people seeking trust, seeking meaning, seeking competence and direction. Leaders still wrestle with fear, ambition, ego, and the weight of responsibility. The context evolves, but the human realities endure. So when I return to thinkers like Cicero, I don't see ancient history disconnected from modern leadership. I see enduring insights into what it means to lead other human beings well. And perhaps that's worth remembering in an age that's often obsessed with novelty. Thank you for listening.